Throughout my entire time playing video games, I don't think I've ever played a game quite like Destiny. I've only been playing video games consistently for about 8 years, and there was that one time in college I didn't play anything for like 4 months straight, but yeah, Destiny is pretty unique. When the first Destiny game came out 6 years ago, I had no idea what to expect. I didn't know about the insane amount of hype behind the game. I wasn't aware of Bungie's track record having made all the Halo games before this. I remember seeing a gameplay demo. For some reason, I was at my aunt and uncle's house watching this, and thought to myself, yeah, this isn't what I normally play, but I might like this. You see, September is my birthday month, so at this time, I was scouting out what I might want to ask for. Normally, I would go for the newest version of Madden, but I guess sports games are utter garbage now, so that wasn't an option anymore. Truth be told, I'm pretty sure I first told my parents about Destiny in an Outback Steakhouse. And now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think I've ever been to an Outback Steakhouse since. From that point on, the rest was history. I played Destiny for 3 years, made a video about it that somehow caught the attention of the YouTube algorithm, and here we are. And now I'm making my own version of Destiny in my free time, filled with some evil robots that at the time don't do anything but just walk towards you, but man, aren't they menacing. Did I mention I teach a class on game design? Y'all really should take it. Links in the description. Despite the positive memories, if you were around during those first few years, you know that Destiny went through some really hard times. Reviewers were giving the game low scores, fans of Halo and just gamers in general who were looking forward to the game were mostly disappointed. Despite not knowing much about the game at the time, I'm sure that if I had the same high expectations as everyone else, I would have been just as upset. And honestly, 3 to 4 years later, people got to see just that. Good times. But Destiny, and Destiny 2 for that matter, didn't wind up dying like so many people thought at the time. Some games releasing after Destiny have come out to similar reception. Fallout 76, Anthem, and Battlefield 5, among others, have seen their player bases largely disappear. Even other games that received good feedback upon release, Borderlands 3, The Division 2, are some that come to mind, have largely faded away as time has gone on. But Destiny, despite its shortcomings and troubles, has somehow managed to remain popular and relevant over the course of 6 entire years. And this is why. The initial release of Destiny was rough, to say the least. If you were around back then in those days, then I'm sure you're already well aware of the major issues Destiny faced early on. Unlike lots of popular games these days, Destiny didn't launch with a ton of bugs. Sure, there were a couple of ways to exploit the loot system, but there wasn't anything functionally wrong with the game. At no point did people feel like they were just beta testing a currently broken, buggy, glitchy project. Instead, fans' disappointment largely came due to the underwhelming delivery of many of the game's promised features. Destiny was advertised to have a great story, and the story was laughably bad to the point of being non-existent. Basic features that most people would expect to be in a game like this, such as a database of some kind, were nowhere to be found. Well, it kinda was, just on Bungie.net. And many of the current loot and leveling systems put in place were obnoxiously unfriendly and time-consuming. I think I'd still be looking for 64 helium filaments if Bungie hadn't changed their farming ways. And on top of that, many of the game's missions were repeated over and over again, which is pretty common in games like this. However, most of Destiny's encounters were a monotonous horde mode style of design that lacked, basic mechanics. Despite all of this though, the game found a decently sized group of core players, who at the very least stuck around to play the game's first raid. Destiny's first raid, the Vault of Glass, was one of the few factors that kept the game going. Players loved the exploration, mystery, cooperative elements, and complex encounter mechanics present in this mission. And when players started getting their hands on the raid exotic, the Vex Mythoclast, there was a large amount of hype and attention. I truly think if it weren't for the raid being as good as it was, Destiny may have turned out like so many of the other underwhelming games we see, dead without a large enough dedicated player base to support it. Unfortunately, Destiny's first 2 expansion packs, The Dark Below and House of Wolves, were clearly created with the same strategy in mind as the vanilla game. So while it managed to keep already dedicated players along for the ride, there were still a large amount of people who had given up on the project. Now this video isn't a retrospective on Destiny's complete timeline. Instead, it's a look into how Destiny managed to overcome these issues and remain relevant today, despite the thousands of people still play this game comments you used to see everywhere, and you'll probably see now in this video because I said it. From this point forward, Bungie needed to turn things around. While they had a good number of loyal fans, many players had left the game, and many reviewers wrote off Destiny as one of the biggest disappointments in gaming history. Controversies were emerging, stating that Destiny's story had largely been scrambled together last minute due to tons of reworks. They were just not in a favorable position. But unlike so many other games that ran into similar problems, Bungie was able to turn Destiny around and get a big number of players back, while simultaneously adding new players to the fold. How did they do it? Well, in my eyes, it all started with this. Destiny's first big expansion, The Taken King, is, in my opinion, the reason why Destiny is still relevant today. If this DLC didn't deliver, the only Destiny videos you'd see these days would be people talking about the game that could have been so amazing. The Taken King added tons of new, fresh, and exciting content to Destiny. There was a story that had a tangible antagonist, kind of a weird thing to compliment, but considering where the game started, that was a big leap in the right direction. The Taken King had new enemies to fight, what I think is still Destiny's best raid experience to date, combining the Oryx elements from the story to the endgame quests, culminating with the final boss fight, new subclasses, and so many features and systems that were completely overhauled and reworked. Interestingly enough though, I don't think the Taken King itself saved Destiny because it was the greatest thing since Timbo's game design class. Not sponsored. Just kidding, how could it be sponsored? It's my game design class and it's amazing, go check it out. Instead, the way in which Bungie handled the adversity and responded with something like The Taken King is what ultimately saved Destiny from being left behind and forgotten. Many games that came before Destiny and many games that followed it cracked under the pressure. In my mind, there are three main things that needed to successfully happen to turn the state of a game, or really anything, around. Those things being listening to your fans, marketing big, and delivering on your promises. For the remainder of the video, I don't want to bag on Anthem, but it's the one game that I know the most about to compare Destiny to that's been in a similar situation. But I'm sure you could replace Anthem with Fallout 76 or Battlefield 5 or whatever other letdown of a game that you want to put in here. Let's start with the first thing, listening to your fans. This is pretty self-explanatory, but so few companies manage to do this these days. Bungie clearly listened to player feedback when they came out with The Taken King, having directly addressed many of the players' exact grievances. And since they removed themselves from Activision, this has only gotten better. Bungie listened to their community and fans, giving them the experience that they want. Anthem didn't do this also well. If you followed Anthem and can think back to their Taken King era, that being the content drop 1 year after the initial release, they came out with a Cataclysm event. While it wasn't exactly what people were asking for, it did try to remedy some problems. People enjoyed the Cataclysm game mode for what it was because it gave them something else to do in a game that severely lacked content. But shortly after releasing it, what did they do? They took a perfectly good game mode that everyone liked out of a game that was severely lacking content for some reason. Marketing big might be the one that slips through the cracks, but I think it's one that needs to be mentioned. Sure, Bungie did get some help from Sony and E3, but Bungie marketed The Taken King really well. So well that I can still remember the live action trailer that they made for it. People knew it was coming, whether they were fans of the game or not. Bungie also created bundles for new players so they could get the complete Destiny experience of Year 1 and The Taken King. Other games like Anthem have been terrible when it comes to letting the public know about new content coming out. There was a lot of stuff that came out for Anthem that I just missed. Their big YouTube presence certainly helps, but with Bungie, I would stumble upon new information without even trying to. Not to mention the things that they were coming out with were big and exciting, new content, new story, new raid, new this, like new, rather than just like, you knew what was coming and you knew it was gonna be a lot. And finally, delivering on your promises. This one is pretty self-explanatory, so I'm gonna keep it brief. Like some boxer briefs, Fruit of the Loom. Comment below what type of underwear you wear. Don't actually do that. Advertising new content, hosting live streams, and creating hype around something is only part of the picture. At the end of the day, you actually have to be a person of your word and deliver the experience you said you were going to deliver. Luckily, Bungie hardly, if ever, lies about what's coming. both for the Taken King back then and now. As long as we forget Destiny 1 vanilla, then all else is forgiven. It's kind of crazy to think about, but if these few things didn't fall into place, I think people would be talking about Destiny a lot differently than they do. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leaving me a positive rating would be greatly appreciated. For more content like this every week, make sure to subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.